The ramp siren started howling and the lightning sensor flashed red over the pier. And a voice on the operations channel, steady, unfamiliar. Somehow already mine, said my name like a seatbelt. Marcos, do not break the red line. Lightning within 5. Hold all marshals, chocks stay stowed, gate H10 for walk-ups. I'll keep a ED and nebulizers hot. I'm Marcos Alvarez. 29, ramp lead at Miami International. South Terminal HJ Concourses. The part of the city where the air always remembers it once was ocean. My world is wands and cones and the arithmetic of tons in motion. I can read a tug's mood by the way the hitch rattles. I can tell when a belt loader's going to lie by the pitch of its idle. On storm nights we trade speed for survival. We stop pretending we're stronger than sky. Copy no ramp, all marshals hold, I answered, hand on the glass. Watching a 737 roll toward H10 with its beacon painting our rain in red. VDGS is up, but if it flickers, we freeze. Affirmed, the voice said. This is Diego with MDFR Station 7, posted at South Terminal. I'll stage at H10 with med bag, oxygen, spare EP, and hot packs. Marcos, thank you. Do not let anyone touch the ramp. He said, do not like a gift. He said my name like a cleat. Some nights Miami is a theater of lightning. You can feel the distance even before the sensor proves it. Hair on your forearms turns into storytellers. The air tastes like a 9-volt battery against your tongue. On my tablet, the airfield lightning map pulsed rings like ripples from a stone. The alert banner went from amber to red. Our pier beacons did their obedient rotation. Inside the gatehouse, passengers pressed phones to glass and made their own weather with sighs. I tell my new hires this 3 times in training, and once more when the sky raises its voice, red means no heroes. No one goes below the jetbridge line. No wands, no cones, no chocks. Engines spin down on their own time. A PU stays on. GPU stays hungry. Anyone who says just 2 steps gets their badge read back to them in a tone they will remember. But the part that would knock my balance a few inches to the left hadn't happened yet. And I could feel it pacing just out of frame. The 737 was short final for the gate. VDGS, the green bars that tell a plane how close it is to home, glowed steady. The captain called in. H10, we're on visual guidance. We understand red ramp. We'll hold at stop. He sounded like a man who'd landed in Miami more than he'd unpacked. The nose wheel crept to the line, stopped dead on stop. No one came near the paint. We could have taught a class on restraint. Marcos, a voice in my left ear, gate agent. We have wheelchair assists waiting in the jet bridge. Passenger in 14C is wheezing, says asthma kicked up on descent. Can we board the bridge? Bridge and door are indoors, I said. Door can open once engines are spooled down and the anti-collision beacon is off. But no one sets chocks or opens holds until all clear. Bring 14C straight to Diego at the gate head. Copy, she said. And I heard her move wheel turn, head check click. Voice that saved more nights than mine ever will. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll open the door as soon as it's safe. Please remain seated. Medical. We'll meet 14C first. I stepped to the jet bridge hatch as the beacon on the tail finally went dark. We got the ding on the interphone that means door is armed and asked for disarm. The door sighed open like something had been holding its breath. Heat and people and that hum of relief came out. 14C was a man in his 40s with the particular posture of someone telling himself he's fine, while his lungs deliver a different memo. Diego moved through the crowd the way the good ones do not fast efficient compassion without theater. Latino, maybe 33, dark buzz cut under a cap, MDFR patch on sleeves that knew every stain by name. He navigated with 2 words and 1 gesture per person. Excuse me, palm flat, eye contact. When he reached 14C, he landed a hand on the man's shoulder the way you'd put a book back on a shelf, gentle, sure. You're here. 2 slow breaths. We'll borrow air from the tank. Diego? I asked just to test how his name felt in my mouth. It sat there like a good tool. Marcos. He said my name like we were already on the same checklist. You good? On deck, I said. And it sounded like the right ritual for us. Lightning cracked so bright the concourse blinked, and the VDGS panel glitched into reboot. The overhead lights hiccuped and recovered. The jetbridge control screen flickered. I felt the room lean toward panic, the way crowds do when the electrons remember they're free. We're okay, I told my team, and I made my voice heavy enough to be a floor. Diego, scare. We've got doors. No one touches holds. No one touches belch. We'll count to 60 and then make a new plan. But wait, don't miss this detail. The jet bridge interlock started flashing fault, and the bridge wouldn't drive the last 12 inches to the aircraft. 14C was breathing easier, but row 22 had a child who had fully committed to the idea that this was forever. The captain called H10, jet bridge short. We have APU holding cooling. Marcos, said Ops. Another channel, another set of stakes. We've got ramp flooding near J7 tug took a bath, no injuries. Lightning still red. Do not deploy air stairs. Stand by for reset. Copy. No stairs, I said. We'll reset the bridge. I turned to Diego. We'll need a minute. You okay? Still on you, he said, checking the asthma man's SAT. 98 and improving. I'm going to stage at the gatehead with AED. If that interlock doesn't clear, we'll mock an aisle chair out of a galley car and boats. You just spoke fluent Miami, I said. And he grinned, quick and crooked. We did the dance you learn when machines pretend to be people. Reset breakers. Reboot the bridge. Play nice with the PLC. The fault cleared like it had been waiting to be asked in a tone it preferred. The bridge rolled. The sill kissed the aircraft like two magnets that had finally found each other. The door got the green to open wide. 14C got a nebulizer and a smile and a chair that knew how to hold weight. But the truly shocking part hadn't spun up yet, and I could feel physics clearing its throat. Ops to H10, the airport came back, cool and careful. Microburst warning south of Kylo. Expect gust front in 2 minutes. Do not position belt loaders or tugs in jet wash paths. GPU on H12 is showing overcurrent, leave APS running. Asterisk microburst is a small word for a big hand. It drops out of cloud like a shrug and throws everything it touches into a new lane. In Miami, we build our lives around the idea that wind has a story to tell and rain is a performance with good lighting. Microbursts don't perform. They change your homework after you've turned it in. Team, I said into the ramp channel. Cones to shelter. Belt at H14 stow. Tug at H10 brakes. Everyone inside the jet bridge line in 30 seconds. We're watching the glass for spin-ups. Marcos, Diego said. We have a pregnant passenger near H12 who just said hello to a contraction like she means it. EMS is inbound from Bayside. If the gust hits while they're en route, we'll hold her here. Bring her to H10 if you need to, I said. We have a pocket we can make safe. I glanced at the automatic doors, thought about how many people they'd swallowed and returned tonight, and made a decision I could defend to safety and sleep. I'm pulling a stanchion to make a lane for Diego. Gust front hit like a door someone forgot how to knock on. Rain went sideways. The window panes stuttered in their frames. A child laughed because it sounded like a spaceship and not like the sound adults make when they reconsider everything. Jet wash cones tumbled and stopped at the red line like they'd been trained. Diego's hair under the cap did a thing I noticed and told myself I didn't. The pregnant passenger made it to H10 with a volunteer on one elbow and Diego on the other. Count your breaths with me, he said, and the word count turned air into a job you could do well. Lightning got closer, then farther, then close again, the way a person at a party moves through rooms. In the corner of my eye, the VDGS on H12 died and came back with a language it didn't want to share. The GPU at H12 decided it had aspirations and tripped itself out of the chain. The captain on that plane, and a 320 with a paint job that had flown more spring breaks than a DJ, called in, H12, we lost ground. Holding on APU. Hold on APU, I said. Do not shut down until we green tag the GPU. I turned back to Diego. You good? On deck. He glanced up with a smile that made the fluorescent lights apologize for existing. I want to say it was the smile that made me do the next thing. But it was training and Miami and the part of me that likes roads to be roads and lanes to be lanes. I moved 3 rope stanchions, taped down a walkway, and told the passenger, follow the blue tape. It's easier to behave when the floor tells you how. But here's the choice that felt like electricity. Ops pings. Ramp reopen in 3 minutes if no strike within 5. Caution. Standing water near J9J10. Do not drive tugs through ponds. You would think that's obvious. You'd be surprised how ambitious humans are when they're behind on luggage. Team, I said, we'll get H10 bags last because you can wait to be a hero. H12, you don't. When we all clear, we'll do 1 hold at a time. No 2 belts running in adjacent gauge. I want spotters at each ladder, and I want a man whose face I can picture to say clear. Before I say go, the red beacon on the pole clicked to amber. The siren chirped and quit. Ops said the sentence you can feel in your molars. Ramp is green. Resume caution. Do not forget what red felt like. H12, go GPU then belly, I said into my radio. H10, hold belts until I see wheels on dry. J7, you will not be a hero. If your tug takes a bath, I will hang you on a jet bridge like a jacket until June. Laughter came back on the line high, good, grateful. We started again, which is the secret to this job. A 12 got its green tag. The captain shut down APU and the belly opened its square mouth to us. Bags came out in the choreography of objects that have seen too much and still make it home. H10 went next. The belt hummed. The cartwheels dimpled the water and kept their opinions to themselves. Diego stood at the gatehead, arms crossed without bravado, watching the pregnant passenger's face like the weather was in it. She breathed and nodded and then laughed because someone on the PA used the phrase lightning within 5 and it sounded like a band name. I thought the villain was Sky and Metal. But the next decision wore carpet and spoke softly. Terminal duty to H concourse, a new voice. Dry. We have elevator outage near H8. Wheelchair passengers being routed via service lift behind concourse H support. Do not crowd the service corridor. Security requests escort. Crowding is how humans say they're scared. Crowding plus a service corridor equals the world's worst logic puzzle. I stopped the belt, handed my radio to a new guy with eyes like he's met 3 of himself tonight, and jogged to the back hallway where Miami keeps its secrets. Diego fell in beside me without asking, because some people can read a walk the way I read a spool up. The service corridor was narrow and bright and sweating. Wheelchairs lined up with the patience of machines. People did that shuffle that's halfway between a line and a plan. A TSA officer held a hand up with the serenity of a person who knows shouting makes room smaller. We're going to do this in 3 sets of 4. I said, loud enough to be heard and polite enough to be obeyed. There's air and seats on the other side. If you're strong, you're patient. If you're tired, you go first. If you know what a queue is, you're a hero. A man in a linen shirt tried to be first. His wife gave him a look that saved me 10 seconds of life and he became third. Diego moved the chairs with the same choreography he used on lungs. Steady, efficient, respect as a verb. He glanced at me once, quick. You okay? On deck, I said. You? Still with you. The elevator came back to life with a ding that sounded like someone had told it a secret. We loaded 4 at a time like we were putting values into a function. The corridor breathed. The room remembered how to be a room dot by the time the ramp had turned green twice and amber once, and the siren had gone from howl to nag. Most of the planes we'd been promised had become stories, and most of the bags had found their believers. People did the thing I love this city for. Thanked the air like we planned it, made jokes that don't travel, forgave the weather because the weather is family. It would have been a good ending to a messy night, breaths counted. Doors held, belts run, but Miami likes coders. Ups to H lightning clear. Ramp open until 22 o'clock window. Final inbound to H10 on short. Do not chalk until beacon off. H10 copies, I said. The sun in Miami, there's always sun, even if it's fictional tried to reappear in a smear behind the clouds. The inbound rolled. The VDGs stayed paid up. The captain stopped on stop like he understood how to spell his own name. The beacon turned itself off and H10 became ours again. Two of my guys moved out, brisk and humble. Chocks kissed wheels. Competence formed like a prayer. Out rolled. Belly opened. Diego stayed just inside the glass with a teen whose nose thought it was a faucet. He handed him a tissue like he was giving over a license to a good driver. The teen blew his face like a trombone, looked amazed, said, "Oh!" like he'd invented sinuses. I felt my chest do that release. It does when the rumor that the night was safe becomes belief. I leaned against the jetbridge frame and let the rain on my helmet do what it was always going to do, decorate me with the weather I didn't want to go home without. Marcos? Diego again, this time from the distance between two people who can find each other in a crowd. He came to stand where glass met steel. Up close I could see the salt lines on his collar and the indent his radio had made in his vest. I could also see the tired that hadn't found a place to sit yet. It met the tired in me and they agreed to be friends. We held it. He said, "It held us," I said. He nodded like we'd signed something. Then he leaned his forehead to mine for one beat under the jetbridge canopy PG-13. Consent-sized, the exact distance that turns a crowd into a private room. A dome camera in the corner tilted like a polite cat and then minded its own business. We stepped apart because an agent called Diego, with the urgency of someone whose clipboard had strong opinions. If that were the end, I'd sleep fine. Miami, though, likes to put a sticker on nights that already have labels. Had Iflimia posted a recap ground stop times. A map of cells sliding off the coast, a photo of a ramp crew standing behind a red line like it was a promise. And a grainy still of two figures under a H10 awning with foreheads inclined for the length of a breath. The caption read, "We kept the ramp safe. You kept each other." I didn't send it to Diego. He was already on my phone with a dinner. Under it like he'd been waiting all night to ask what we both knew we'd say. We ate ropa vieja and Eres Moro at a spot-on flagler that serves storm workers without asking for definitions. He told me about MDFR calls where air was a currency and time had teeth. I told him about pushbacks that become essays if you don't pick the right tug and about a tow-bar shear pin that saved the rudder in a career. He told me his abuelo says no like an invitation to stay alive. I told him my TIA labels every cooler because names make rooms polite. We argued about whether guava belongs in barbecue sauce and reached a treaty. We didn't plan anything the way people with calendars do. We wrote a rule the way people with radios do. When NWS paints the polygon over the airport, he texts here. When Ramp Ops says lightning within 5, I text on deck. He keeps a spare spacer in my office drawer with a note that says, "For the kid who names it." I keep a Sharpie in his aid bag because labels are love when rooms are tired. He says, "Do not," and I hear, "I want you around." I say, "Leave me one clean cut," and he hears, "I will." Weak stack in Miami. Like palm fronds after a storm. Neat if you speak the language. We drill in smaller weather. A ground power cart that thinks it's a song. A jet bridge that wants to have opinions. A passenger who calls 911 from the lav because anxiety can read maps too. We drill inside weather. Heat that makes tarmac a thought experiment. A storm cell that puts rain in one gate and sun in the next. A lightning all clear that lasts 12 minutes and still needs to be honored like law. Every time he says, "Marcos, do not," my hands do the right thing before my brain needs to translate. Every time I say, "Diego," the room becomes the kind that listens. On a clean night when Biscayne pretended it was a postcard. We stood under the H Concourse skylight and watched jets pull their own moons across the glass. He wore a baseball cap with the MDFR logo that somehow made his eyes a better color. I touched the brim like I had a right. He let me like I'd earned one. We practiced the one-beat hello again, not because Miami asked, but because we did. Sometimes the safest place in Mia isn't behind a blast fence or inside a storm shelter. Sometimes it's the inch between two foreheads under a jet bridge, when a night remembers how to put its pieces away. Sometimes it's a voice on ops that says your name like a seatbelt and gives you do not like a blessing. Sometimes it's a red line you don't cross and the green light you take only when the room has learned its manners. The next storm will find the airport. It always does. The ramp siren will raise its voice. The beacons will translate it into red. Someone will look at the tarmac pond and think shortcut. Someone will name their inhaler something brave. We'll cone the places that needed cones yesterday and discover 3 we missed. He'll keep air honest. I'll keep lanes honest. He'll ask, "You good?" And I'll say, "On deck." He'll say, "Still with me?" And I'll say, "Right here." Grounded, counted, together.